All right, today we continue the third week in our series about God. And you may say, well, don't we always talk about God? Well, not every question that the minister asks should be answered by God. There's this story, this anecdote about a minister said, this morning I got up and I got my coffee and I sat by the back window of my house and I looked out into the yard and I saw this little thing running across the yard. And it had a tail, and it was brown, and underneath it was white, and it ran up a tree, and it had some acorns, and it was chewing on the acorns. Do you know what it is? The little girl in the front row said, I know the answer is God, but it sounds like a squirrel. Right? So you get into church, and you think, the answer is God, and ultimately we are talking about God. But here's the distinction for this series. And if you're just getting in on this is where we've been. We should learn and grow and discover more about God. As followers of Christ, we should. For the purpose of being able to respond appropriately to God. Because if there is a God, if He is so far, so big, and so beyond us, there should be a big response from our side to that God. But we don't only want to learn how to respond to what we know about God, we want to learn how to respond to what we will never know about God. That's the distinction to what will be mysteries, to the things that we go, I don't understand that. So how should we respond to that? And whether you're a religious person or you say you're not a religious person or you're a follower of Christ or you're not, you probably grew up and at an early age, you heard the word God or the concept of God. And as children, we just accept what our parents think about God. And as we grow and mature, we begin to question about God. And as we grow, we find out that there are some mysteries about God. There's some things that we'll never understand. And there's some things maybe a skeptic had planted in our minds. And we began to think, I wonder if there is a God. And all I'm saying is that the mysteries of God, what you'll never know, what you could never know, because God's so beyond us, doesn't have to trip you up. It can actually lead to a life of reverence and awe and respect towards God. I mean, there's three ways that you can respond to the mysteries of God. You can worship, you can live in awe and say, He's so far beyond me, and because of that, I'm still going to worship. Or you can say, I'm just not going to follow Him. I don't believe in faith. I don't believe that there is a God. Or, I guess you could try to fill in the gaps with your own thinking, your own logic, your own imagination. And we do that. We create God in our own image. If you think about Christmas time and the nativity scene of baby Jesus, meek and mild, laying in the manger. You can drive around town. Depending on what manger scene you look at, you may see a red baby Jesus. You may see a yellow baby Jesus. There may be a black baby Jesus. There may be a white, a cracker baby Jesus. Depending on the person's view of Jesus. And isn't it funny? He's a Jew. They're going to be surprised when they see the Middle Eastern person as their Jesus with the nail-scarred hands, He's going to be olive-skinned. We don't have the ability to create God. He predates us. He's before us. There's no creative tampering to who He was. He was, He is, and He will be. He is to come. His name is Yahweh. And if you want to know who He is, just look at the stories. Look at what He's been, because He says, what I have been is what I will be. What I will be is what I have been. So we can't tame God. We can't manage God. We can't put Him in a box. We can't determine what He's like or what He's not. In the book Reason for God, one skeptic said, I doubt the existence of a judgmental God, one who requires blood to pacify His wrath. Someone had to die before the Christian God would pardon us. But why couldn't He just forgive? I don't believe in the existence of a judgmental God. And what he's saying is, I don't believe this isn't the kind of God that I want. And because this is the God that's being said, I'm not going to believe in Him at all. We don't have the ability to edit God or manage God or airbrush what God is like. He predates us. Josh McDowell wrote a book in 1972 called Evidence That Demands a Verdict. Anybody heard of that book? During that time, it was rare. It's like one of the only books on apologetics at that time, in that era. He's a very thoughtful, intellectual, engaging speaker. He has a son named Sean. Sean has followed in his footsteps. He's engaging. He's intellectual. He goes after the hard topics. He can explain himself well. But there was a time when Sean had doubts about his own faith. He tells the story on a podcast that I recently listened to where him and his father was going to speak somewhere, and he went along with his father, late teens, early 20s, and he told his father, he said, Dad, I don't know if I believe Christianity is true. And his expert apologist father said, well, Sean, your mother and I have always taught you to pursue truth. But let me give you a bit of warning. Don't reject something just because you don't like it. Just because it doesn't fit and you don't like it, don't reject it. Reject it if it's not true. That's great advice. Just because I don't like something about God doesn't mean that I have the ability to reject that. Now, if it's not true about God, yes, I should reject that. But the question is, how can we know about God? How has God revealed Himself to us so that we could be confident in who God is? So if I wanted a accurate portrayal of who God is, where am I going to turn?